If you've come to this video after watching my spoiler-free review, welcome back. Now let's talk about it. So outside of the opening scene, which I am in fact not giving away, regardless of whether or not the fact there are spoilers, we go to the main girl. Her name is Beth, but I really want to call her Ashlyn, which is like a mixture of Ash and Ellen from Alien. Anyway, she's a guitar tech for bands and she travels around the world, and we find out that she's pregnant, and then you're thinking, oh god, this is going to be the plot of Mama, isn't it? But thankfully it was in fact not the plot of Mama. But when she figures out she's pregnant, she's going to go stay with her sister who has 3 kids. But as soon as she gets there, she figures out her sister's mad at her because apparently her sister called her twice, while she's touring around the world, because her sister's husband left her like 2 months ago. And apparently she tried to call her twice in 2 months and left her some cryptic ass voicemails that don't actually tell her that her husband left her. See, this is where the whole plot point falls apart for me on that one, because like, if you've ever been around the world, do you know how little your phone works a lot of the time? Phone calls you never get, voicemails you don't even know you have until you reach cellular service. Her sister calls her a groupie life. Meanwhile, her and her kids are about to be evicted from her building that's being condemned. Like, ma'am, what are you doing for a job? Like, the main girl's a guitar tech for a band. That's a pretty cool ass job. That's a whole sound engineer. My point being is, do not degrade someone when you're not sitting pretty yourself. My next plot point, and pardon me if I don't remember, but how did the book get under the building? From what I remember, the book was sitting under the fucking cabin in the woods. But like, there's this earthquake and it opens a hole in the ground, and the building used to be a bank. But there's this earthquake and the building used to be a bank, and when the earthquake happened, in the parking garage there's a big hole that leads down to the old bank vaults, and in the bank vaults is somehow the Book of the Dead. And they're like, oh, the pastor left it here when they brought it back from overseas. Okay, but how did it get there? It was in the woods. And then the kids decide to take the elevator up to their apartment after the earthquake, and the mom yells at them, why are you taking the elevator? And then we find out there's not like a fire escape for their floor of the building, so if you want them to get back to the apartment but you don't want them to take the elevator, but there's not stairs. Or if there were stairs, why didn't they try to take the stairs to get away from the dead people instead of taking the elevator? And you know what, maybe I came from just a different kind of family, but if I were to walk into my kitchen, turn on the flames, and just start slamming eggs into the frying pan, my family wouldn't have been quite so, soft about it. There's no way my sister would have been like, oh, are you okay? She would have been like, what the fuck is wrong with you? I can hear my dad now. Have you lost your goddamn mind? Guess I need a part 3. You asked for it, so I'm bringing it. This is the sequel to the unapologetic spoiler-filled review of The Evil Dead Rise. Just so everybody's aware, but we were all pretty much guessing it, this all happened because one crusty little boy decided he was going to climb into the old bank vaults and steal the Book of the Dead, which was surrounded by hanging crosses and what looked like St. Christopher necklaces, and was even like in its own little, I don't know what they call a raised burial plot. That's not an epitaph. I don't know what it's called. Wow, here's an entire book surrounded by crucifixes. Let's take it home. We can sell it. Along with these really old records that he thinks he can use because he is a wannabe DJ. I don't know what kind of bops he expected to find, but he goes home, he sets up the first one, and it's this priest talking about how they found the Book of the Dead overseas and they brought it back. And then the priest goes on to say that this book needs to be destroyed. And then somebody commented in the last video that that's why there's multiple books of the dead. There's one in the bank vault, there's one out in the cabin and all that good stuff. So I apologize about that. But once he hears this on this record, for some odd reason, it makes him want to go, hey, you know what, let's check out the next record. And then once he puts on the next record is all the weird chanting, and that's when all the spooky shit goes on. And to touch on the fact that this kid is a wannabe DJ who's constantly playing loud music, their neighbors must be saints. Already make it known that they know the people who live next door, but the people underneath them not once come upstairs to bang on the door. Actually, you don't hear anything about anybody else who lives in this building other than this floor until the very end. Which leads me to wonder, who the fuck didn't need to use the elevator last night? There was screaming and there were gunshots. Did nobody notice? Towards the end, the entire elevator does a homage to The Shining where the doors open and blood goes everywhere. You mean to tell me nobody walked in that lobby afterwards? It was daylight by the time they got out of the building. Does nobody have a job they have to go to early in the morning? Nobody working construction or medical? And that leads me to the other question. Eventually, somebody's going to notice the smell. There was a fuckload of blood. So somebody's going to smell that. There's like 7 dead people. Granted, they're not going to find them, but there was a lot of dead people. There's going to be an investigation. It's not like in the woods where we can blame bear attacks. There's going to be questions. And a woman missing with a little girl. My only explanation as to why this would never be brought up again is that maybe they live in the same city that Saw is filmed. Shit, apparently I'm gonna need one more part. This is the final part of my spoiler-fueled Evil Dead Rises review. To which after this one, I promise I will shut the fuck up, but I really need you to go see this. Now that I've talked about the things that make me go, what? I'm gonna talk about the things I love. So as I've said before, I don't really care for the adult actors in this movie. However, the main character lady, her name is Beth, but I will call her Ashlyn because I consider her to be a mixture of Ash and Ellen Ripley from Alien, is just badass. Like, first of all, she's pregnant through this whole thing. And at first I was like, do we really need a pregnancy storyline? But like, when you think about it, that's hardcore. That is an underlying extra level of shit she has to deal with. Number 2 being is that she never once hesitated on having to do anything. There was no, I don't want to have to do this because you're my sister. She knew for a fact that was not her sister. At the end, she kicked that head right into the wood chipper, no hesitation. Once her oldest niece started eating glass off the countertop, she knew. There was no, I want to save you. It was, okay, time to go. My second topic is the giant zombie mutant octopus. That was the coolest shit I have seen in a long time. Did you ever see The Abyss? It was like that, but I didn't want to throw up. And the third and final part I want to talk about, and I don't exactly know how he did it, but the director managed to put a bunch of scary stuff in the background without it being like a jump scare, and I really appreciate that. Because while Crush Parking Lot Candy loves horror movies and enjoys a good jump scare, I tend to watch through my fingers. And this is one of those movies like I want to see everything that's going on. Overall, 8.5 out of 10. What movie should I do next?